Hello friends, my name is Miranda and welcome back to my universe. Today we are going to be talking about Wool by Hugh Howey. Wool is the first book in a trilogy called the Silo series, and there is an Apple TV show on this book. So that's actually why I came to it. I've only seen the first 2 episodes, and let me tell you, you better buckle up. We have a wild ride ahead of us. This video will be spoiler free, so feel free to watch as much of it as you would like, whether you've read this book, seen the show, or done neither. And I will have a spoilery discussion towards the end, but I will give a warning ahead of time, so no worries there. All right, to kick this off, what is Wool about? What is the Silo series about? Miranda, I've seen this everywhere. I don't know what it's about, or maybe you already know what it's about, but either way, let me tell you. Wool is a science fiction post-apocalyptic type book that follows around people who live in this 144-foot underground silo. The whole premise of this book is that the outside is toxic. There is no way for humans to live outside. The air literally kills you. And so we follow around these characters in this society that operates pretty much like our own. There are people with careers, people with families, there are politics going on, different things like that, but they have to live in this silo within I almost said 4 walls, but there are not 4 walls in a silo. In this cylinder that is basically underground, we follow around our main character, Juliet, who works in the depths of this silo on machines as she works through the different power changes that are happening. We start this book off with a bang because the first chapter starts us off with our silo sheriff named Holston committing the unforgivable sin in the silo, which is basically he says he wants to go outside. Now, what happens when someone expresses this desire is they get what they wished for and they get to go outside, which of course means death because you can't breathe the air in. So the rest of this novel follows this devastating loss of the sheriff as the silo kind of, in certain ways, falls apart, falls together again, falls apart as the politics and the policies change and new characters emerge, trying to figure out the history of this silo and how they even got there in the first place. I can't really say much else without spoiling, so that's all I'll say for now. Before I get into my thoughts about the book overall, we will break it down by plot, characters, and then my overall emotion and feelings while reading this book. In terms of plot, I think that Howey did a fantastic job. I was captivated throughout this entire novel. There were nights that I had to force myself to put this book down. And this is coming from somebody who just came out of a 1.5-year long reading slump. So this book was insane to hop into. There's always something exciting happening in this novel. We, for most of the book, follow around several characters doing a bunch of different things. When you have a story that is constrained to a specific location, even though this location is huge, right? It can sometimes feel bland and difficult and slow, but Wool is none of those things. It is very alive and there's a lot of different intricacies going on, a lot of different character dynamics happening that completely develop and grow as it goes along, and the plot is fantastic. Right when I thought I figured the silo out, next chapter, boom, I was completely wrong. I knew nothing. Moving on to characters, there's also nothing I would change here as well, except I wish specific characters had more depth. Even our main character, Juliet, or one of the other ones, Lucas. And I think to myself, wow, there was a lot I didn't know about this character. Of course, when you're in the midst of all this turbulence and this plot that is super exciting, you don't really notice that. But now that I'm sitting at the end of the novel, I'm like, wow, I'm really glad that there's a second and third book because I feel like I don't really know these characters super well. I feel trauma bonded to them, perhaps, but I don't feel like I know much about their childhood or why they do the things they do. That's just a general kind of side thought about the characters. They are not super deep in certain aspects that I kind of miss in a novel. But in the midst of all of the drama of what's happening in the silo, I didn't really notice it then, so I'm not going to dock Howie any points for that. I overall gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. It is probably going to end up being one of my favorite books of 2025. I will already call it. And I'm not usually a science fiction reader, but this one was fantastic, gripped me the whole way through. I felt like I couldn't put it down. And the characters, though they were not very deep and a little more on the shallow side, were genuine, and I felt like I was right there next to them. So I would recommend this book for anybody. It was a wild ride, let me tell you. All right, now on to the spoilery discussion parts. If you don't want to be spoiled, please have an amazing day, and I'll see you next time. All right, let's talk about everything, shall we? The fact that there are multiple silos was the biggest aha moment for me. I thought that was really cool that there were other silos and that it wasn't just this one silo and everybody else lived in cities and were like, oh yeah, I don't know what's out there in the desert, just some silo, I guess. But instead it was like, no, the only people who are alive are the ones in these silos. That was crazy to me. I also will say, I don't know how I feel about this exactly, but the fact that so many characters died in the beginning of the novel, that was an interesting choice. I guess I'll word it that way. There was a time where I thought I had to put the book down, that I wouldn't be able to finish it because it felt like every main character was dying on me. But then when Juliet survived her cleaning, I then realized, oh, okay, there's hope. Thank you, Howie. It almost was weird finishing the novel and it felt like nobody had died in a really long time besides Bernard. Rest in peace, even though I don't really like you. But I felt like that was something that was almost lacking because I also, admittedly, being a Stephen King reader, I'm used to a lot of death at the end of novels. And so going into the last few chapters of this book, I totally was expecting one of our main characters, one of our deeply beloveds, to pass away. And so when it didn't happen, that kind of was like, I mean, it was a pleasant surprise, but also I still don't know how I feel about it, right? What's going on? Isn't this an end of the world type novel? But I loved, oh my goodness, if you read this book and if you have the little author's note, not the little, it's a pretty lengthy author's note at the end of the novel. And if you haven't read it, please go back and read it. I loved hearing what Howie had to say. He just kind of talked about what it's like traveling and how we tend to stick with the things we find comfortable, but also we have these bursts of inspiration to go out and explore and see things for ourselves. And he also had a lot of commentary about social media and what is portrayed to us and how what we're fed is not always what is outside. But at the end of the day, in the silo, that's exactly what it was, right? He was also saying that the whole twist in this tale is that there is no twist. The air is toxic and you cannot go outside. Like, that is what it is. That's how it is. That's how these people have to live, even if they don't like it, right? Juliet is completely right. These people can have hope and be built on hope in the fact that they are not alone in this silo if they only learned the truth, if they just knew there are other silos around them. I loved that our main protagonist survived everything that she faced. I think that was fantastic. I think it really speaks a lot about, hey, here's somebody who has hoped beyond everything else, who always persevered, who always fought through it. At times, was it unrealistic that she survived? Perhaps, but overall, it is not that she survived that matters. It is that she kept moving forward. And as much as her body could keep going, that is how far she went. And that is what I love about this novel. I love how much it talks about hope and that it is not worth sitting there feeling hopeless. There is nothing for you in a life that is stagnant, where you're not growing. If you don't like something, change it. Go out there and change it. Go out and see for yourself if what you're being fed is true. And so I just loved it overall. I didn't mean to keep going on a rant about this, but I just love it. Hi, Miranda from the future of the rest of this video, but also the past since you're watching this right now after this video is published. I realized I never talked about Silo 17. And I need to talk about Silo 17 because that was my favorite part of the entire novel. What I loved about how he's writing, specifically when Juliet is in Silo 17, is that it almost seemed like a horror novel at times. So many times I was on the edge of my seat, actually terrified. Like that one scene where she's coming out of the water and Solo is half dead on the ground and she has no idea who hurt him. If he was hurt by someone else, she just doesn't know what happened at all. And not to mention even her being underwater to fix the machines at the bottom of the silo. Like that was insane to me, the fact that she had to use the air bubbles underneath the stairs to breathe. I said, is this Stephen King writing? Because that seems an awful lot like how my favorite author would write. But I genuinely really enjoyed reading about Silo 17. It felt very, very post-apocalyptic. We're trying to figure out what happened to this silo, what happened to the people who used to live there. It just was really, really well written, well done. I thought it was crazy that there were kids who lived down there too. That was insane to me. I just think that Silo 17 added so much more depth to this novel that wasn't there with just Silo 18, like the normal, well-running silo. You know what I mean? It was just cool to read about it without knowing what had happened and just having to trust that, like, okay, we'll figure it out as this goes along. So it was just really, really cool. Added a lot more to the novel, in my opinion. I loved it. It was my favorite thing ever. We love Silo 17. But yes, if you are still with me, I just want to give you a big thank you, a big hug. Thank you so much for watching this video and supporting me. And please let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are about Wool. If you've seen the show, please let me know how you feel about it. No spoilers, of course, for everybody else who will be perusing through the comments. But I just want to know how you feel, what your thoughts are. If you've read the rest of the series, let me know how you feel without any spoilers. I would love to discuss this series with you. Thank you so much for watching. I love you all. Please be safe, make good choices, and I will definitely be seeing you next time. Bye!